Good evening, this is Pineleaf Needles, and welcome to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. Tonight we have with us Andang,
Hey, everybody.
Braxwolf,
Hello, everybody.
Ethelros,
Hello.
and the Dark Draculetta.
Greetings, everybody.
And tonight we don't have much news, but I think we have a bit to discuss. So we'll begin with LOTRO among the MMO Hall of Fame. And Draculetta, you seem to have something to do with this.
Why, yes, I do. Well, I don't have anything to do with it per se, but I wrote the article.
Everyone plays it because you do.
That's right. I said, make it be. Put them in the Hall of Fame. And they were. No. To tell you the truth, I didn't even know there was an MMO Hall of Fame until this happened. But it's actually a group of industry insiders that actually vote on the games to put into the Hall of Fame. And LOTRO did, well, they're in fourth place, but they tied at third at 70%, so I'm not sure how they figured out they're in fourth. But that's pretty good. The games ahead of them are PlanetSide was in third, Star Wars Galaxies was second, and Guild Wars was first. So I would say that's pretty good company to be up that high with.
Yeah, and there were some other MMOs that are already in that, like World of Warcraft, correct? I mean,
Correct.
It is pretty good company to be in.
Yes, yes, it is. And you know, as I said, it's all some press and industry insiders, a bunch of CEOs of some game companies, and some programmers and product managers that actually do the voting. So.
All right, and what is the result of the votes?
You get to say that you're in the MMO Hall of Fame.
Well, yes, but I noticed though that they gave the top 20 vote getters, and some of them are 20%. That sounds like a bit low to be inducted into a Hall of Fame. So I was wondering what the cutoff is.
Yeah, I kind of wondered that too. So the best I could figure out, because the website wasn't really a lot of help on that aspect, it looked like to me that apparently 20% must be the cutoff. Because I looked back at some previous years, and the games were 20% on there too. So.
All right. Then, any more comments on the Hall of Fame before we go on?
Yeah, I hope they release a LOTRO Hall of Fame edition, because I'd buy that.
And what do you hope will be in it?
Oh, all the special stuff. You know, all this. I don't know. I have no idea.
The steed of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there you
Ooh.
go. A new mount. A blanket mount.
Yeah,
And
the
it needs
steed
to be
of
a
the-
scented
goat
candles.
war steed appearance that's only available in the special Hall of Fame edition.
Bronzed hobbit feet.
Bronze, stop it! Oh, good grief. Then we'll head on to the layoffs.
What a segue, Python.
That was a transition.
Most depressing segue you've ever done.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Welcome to
It's
the
not
rest
really
of
a
the show.
good segue you could do into that, though, to be fair.
No, there isn't.
So who wrote the
Very
article
well.
for this one?
I think they should talk.
I see
Yeah, I do
Draculetta
too.
is listed as the author of the original article.
Yeah, I was about to say, it depends which article you're talking about.
Go ahead and start us off, Drac. We're just reporting the facts that we know.
Well, basically, we don't really know a lot. It was reported on several game news sites that Warner Brothers did lay off quite a few people. And Warner Brothers did release a statement when asked about it. Gamasutra actually approached them, and they said to them, quote, "As part of our normal business process, We're routinely looking at the strategic alignment of our company. Unfortunately, in order for us to invest in growth areas at Turbine, we have to eliminate some positions. These are always tough decisions which we don't approach lightly, but it's crucial that Turbine is structured in a way that reflects the current and coming marketplace. And that's pretty much officially all that we really know.
Yes, that's corporate gobbledygook.
Exactly.
We did see some things with a few LOTRO devs reporting on Twitter. We're not going to mention their names out of respect, but obviously on the internet you can find their names out. But there were a few laid off, and that are LOTRO devs for sure. So that means that some of the LOTRO team was, in fact, laid off according to the devs themselves. So, yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Probably should go around the horn on that.
Yeah, Pineleaf.
Well,
Yeah, never
first
should
of
start
all,
with Pineleaf.
yes, never start with finance. Yeah. Well, personally, I think that corporations are constantly looking for ways of, let's say, making impressive numbers at the end of quarters. And they just seem to think that laying off people is one of the best ways of handling this. And I don't know, I just get the feeling that companies are too much into let's lay off as many people as possible to make ourselves so lean that we are going to die of anorexia. But that's the only opinion I have on this matter at this time.
Okay, Drac.
It's, sad in this economy. I mean, I really feel sorry for those that actually were, let go. Now is probably not the best time to be looking for a job, as we all know. And Fredulous in the chat actually says that Warner Brothers statement sort of implies that LOTRO, DDO, and AC are not, and then he put in quotes, growth areas, which is kind of sad and depressing.
It does imply that. I would like to make that certain that, it does imply that. We don't know for sure.
Correct, yeah.
That probably means that IC is the future, they think, or something stupid like that.
They think that Infinite Crisis is the future, which, to be fair, MOBAs are the most profitable PC kind of game that's out there right now. So it does make sense that they're pursuing that just from that point of view. I don't think Infinite Crisis is necessarily the answer, but it does make sense from a just numbers business point of view.
Well, they see it as a growth area. I'm not sure if I've ever seen the numbers on the profitability, but I think that it's becoming an opinion that MMOs are somewhat of a stagnant growth area, and MOBAs are there's a lot of upside to them right now. So it's a good place to invest, even if it doesn't work out as well as League of Legends, for example. There's still a lot of people that will play the game.
All right, may I ask a question?
Yep.
What exactly is a MOBA?
MOBA is a League of Legends or a Dota. So those two things. Basically, it's a combination between strategy and an isometric third-person character control.
And they think that's an improvement?
Well, the thing is that League of Legends right now is one of the most popular games played. It just recently had record numbers for concurrent users, I believe, for any game.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive.
I think the numbers that were thrown out there were like 24 million
concurrent users, or somewhat regular users.
Basically dwarfs any MMO out there, including
or any game in history.
Yeah.
Except for, I don't think even Call of Duty has that many at the same, like that constantly, which is amazing.
Those kind of numbers will catch an executive's eye real quick.
All right, but the question is whether or not they can successfully compete against that, which is
exactly.
They
do have in their advantage that there aren't too many MOBAs out there right now, but the fact is that you have to be able to compete with it, which means that you have to be able to pull people away from the existing audience, which I don't know if Infinite Crisis will too much.
I mean, you can think of it in this terms, like Infinite Crisis is going up against League of Legends, which League of Legends would be the WoW of the equation. I mean,
All right.
League of Legends is so huge. I don't think anything is going to be able to complete. Just like how WoW is so huge.
So this is essentially a player versus player RTS game.
It can be player
Correct,
versus
yeah.
AI, at least in League of Legends. But yes, that's the
Correct, yeah.
main thing.
Most of the time, it's player versus player battle arena type games.
That's what's making them money. We'll put it that way.
Right. So in other words, something I don't need to pay attention to.
Right. Now, one thing to note with these kind of games is that typically there's only one map, and they just add in balance and extra items, which means that you don't need your entire dev team to be building this thing once you get it built. And so I'm guessing that there were some either laid off from Infinite Crisis or they've been moved to other places since Infinite Crisis's release is just around the corner. You don't really need an art team to still be creating a lot of stuff at that point and things like that. Which Turbine historically has shared a lot of employees between their various games, so it's possible theoretically, and this is probably the most positive point we'll hear all night, but it's possible theoretically that once Infinite Crisis gets to that stage, that LOTRO and the other games could have more people working on them, just not necessarily the same people that have been working on them the whole time. That's the positive side of things. So, Brax, why don't you take us to the middle ground? And go ahead and talk about your article as well.
Okay, so yeah, if you've been on LOTRO Players in the last couple of days, you already know my initial reaction to the layoffs. I wrote a piece the night that it happened, or the night after the day that it happened, and there were some strong emotions. I think I probably shown through a little bit, but so two things. Since that time, I've kind of thought about what we don't know, which we've talked about already, which is a lot. We don't know a lot, and the reason for that is because Turbine has not heeded my plea in my article to come out with some kind of an update on what does this mean to the game.
Yeah, I think it is worth pointing out.
And I'm not the only one saying that.
I think it is worth pointing out that DDO did release a statement saying what their plans were moving forward, which were, I think they basically said that they're about the same, didn't they?
I didn't see that, but I heard somebody say they did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm not the only one saying that. There's I know SIP has said that, and people in the forums are saying that. They're saying, "Tell us, come out and tell us." And to be clear, when I wrote that up, I was not saying, Sapiens, we want to hear something. I was saying I want the producer of the game to come out and tell us what's going on. I don't want to hear it from Sapiens. I don't think it's his job, in my opinion. And for another thing, if it was him, I would wonder if he's even getting all the real information. Not that he's not in the loop, but he's probably not in the loop, right? On everything. I would like to see an executive come out and say, this is what this means to the game. This is what I said in December. This is how it compares, or nothing has changed since then because we already had this plan in place when we came out with the producer's letter in December.
Or they didn't lay off enough people to change the plan. That's the third option I'd like to point out.
Right. So I'm not, even though there was probably some emotion in that post that maybe made it sound a little stronger than it should have been, I'm not backing off that point. I still believe that we should hear something, even though I'm not hopeful of that happening.
And why aren't you hopeful on it? Because if they did it for DDO...
Well, it's because they haven't done it yet, I think, is one. They did it already for DDO, and that was pretty quick after the news broke. Relatively, as far as, I think that's as quick as that team could, figure out what all was going on and then get their statement out. Go ahead, Brax.
Although I was a little bit harsh on Warner Brothers in the post. To be fair, we really don't know what happened. We don't know if the people that were laid off were offered alternate employment within Warner Brothers somewhere else and they turned it down. We just don't know. It doesn't seem that way, but we don't know for sure. So I wanted to be a little bit more fair and say we just don't know enough to know what we don't know. And that's why I'm calling for this, not for names of who was laid off or reasons for why people were laid off, just focusing basically on where the game is now and where it's going to go in the future because of these.
Yes, one of the biggest criticisms we have had is that, let's say, lack of information coming out of from Turbine concerning LOTRO, and this is why, because we're wondering what's going on.
And what kind of annoys me about this is that they'd had such a great record this year of having like all these, they'd started the streams, they started all this communication, and then something like this happens where they're not talking. And so part of me wonders if they're allowed to talk about it or if they even want to talk about it because they might be afraid that they could get laid off.
I think just for me, I just find it very strange that they would confirm it for one game and not the other. If they would not confirm it for any of them, it would make sense. It wouldn't be good, but it would make sense. Or if they did it for all of them, but just for one game, and far as I know, I'm not sure if they've done it for Asheron's Call or Infinite Crisis, but just for that one game, it just seems very strange for them to do that. I wonder if it's like this one producer decided to just go for it, or if they were given the okay and the others haven't tried yet.
Well, once again, it's the perfect storm, right? They've just come out and said we're not going to do any more expansions. Then the layoffs happen, and players put this stuff together, right? And the statement from Warner Brothers says we're going to focus on more strategic things. All of these things, when you put them together, looks like a pattern. So if it's not, somebody needs to come out and tell us.
Yeah, it definitely has been leading a lot of players, and I mean a lot of players, more than normal, to conclusions that may be true, maybe not true. And Turbine definitely needs to, speculation in that regard is never good to have for a game, particularly an MMO. So, Ethalros, why don't you go into your thoughts now?
Oh God! I think when I first saw this, it was late in the day, so I wasn't exactly at my best. But I've kind of gone through all the stages of grief this past week of hearing this. When I first saw it, I was just more shocked and surprised than anything else, because I know some people saying they saw this come, there were signs everywhere like this. The producers' letter saying they were not going to do expansion this year. Me personally, I was excited about it. I thought it was a good idea to just take a year off, do some TLC on the game. That seemed like good. I was happy with how the game was going. I'll put it that way. So to have this come out, it completely blindsided me, because I haven't seen these signs that the game wasn't doing well, at least from the limited information we've been given. And then after that, I think it was at that point that some of the names started coming out. Obviously, again, we're not going to mention them here out of respect, but having seen some of them myself, that upset me quite a lot, because there were some very talented and communicative developers that got killed, and that I think made me more personally angry than anything else. Which, it's just kind of hard to talk about this, because I didn't think it would bother me this much. I know the last time they had layoffs, I was like, okay, it's bad, but I think we can work through this. But this time, it just really kicked me in the stomach, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that some of the reason that I thought it was such a big deal is because, according to some of the developers' Twitters, some of the most communicative devs for LOTRO were some of the ones that are no longer developing for the game, which is not necessarily a good thing when we had this increased communication. So I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and leading on from that point, it just, I don't know, it feels to me now that so many of those particular developers have gone now that there aren't many that actual LOTRO developers that I can name by their nickname that actually work on the game. Most of them have either like gone off to who knows where, are working on a different Turbine game, or have been laid off, which doesn't really bode well for the communication aspect, because it means we're now again almost entirely dependent on Sapiens for any information. And in terms of one-to-one, with the developers, that always, or at least from what I can see, always leads to better development. And that just seems to be a very... now at this point, it seems like from the player's point of view, the future development of LOTRO and the present development of LOTRO is now in the hands of strangers.
Yeah, I mean, that is partially true, but I mean, at the same time, they haven't exactly hired people in the last however many years, and so while the communication factor might be down with devs, with players, these people have been building this game for, a long time, everyone that's still at Turbine, and so I don't know if that's 100% fair to say, but I do see where you're coming from for sure.
I think probably as players we have to look back and realize that this isn't the first time that layoffs have happened at Turbine since WB took over, and it probably won't be the last. It just kind of seems to be the way they operate, for good or ill.
I know, like, I've talked to both Brax and Andang during this whole week, and I think initially I was... Yes, a lot.
You talked him off the cliff.
Like, hours and hours. It was a lot. Anyway.
Yes. Like, when I first got, I was to the point of saying, yeah, the game's not going to get any more development. It's done. Like, we might have some stuff this year that they've already developed, but aside from that, it's like people are saying maintenance mode. At this point, I don't think it's quite to that extent. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if, say, next year or the year after, the development slows to almost nothing.
I don't know about almost nothing. I mean, here's the thing, is that massively reported on the last time layoffs happened that before they hired on the new people, there were over 400 people working at Turbine. And from estimates that we've seen, this layoff and the last layoff were both around 30 people across all of Turbine. That means that there's still a large team of people working on maybe not necessarily DDO, but definitely LOTRO and Infinite Crisis, I think. And so I don't know if I don't think it's as dire as people have said, and even I mean, Sapiens went on the forums and said that he didn't exactly directly say it, but he did point out that the person who was saying like 100 people had been laid off wasn't, that was not necessarily true. And so less than that, that means you still have, I think, over half the LOTRO team still working at Turbine from both layoffs. And so I think we'll still see, unless there's another layoff in the future, I think we'll still see a lot of content coming out of Turbine for LOTRO.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm more than anything else, I'm kind of saw that they axed off some of these really, really good developers. They chose to pick those to, go specifically at just, or assuming specifically, obviously, we have no idea how it actually went. But I think that personally bothered me.
Yeah, I sometimes know that I remember one time when our company was doing layoffs, half the ones they laid off, they said, well, these people are making too much money, so we'll lay them off. They don't care, but, well, yeah, they're making a lot of money because they were given raises because they were doing a good job.
Exactly, and that's part of the reason why I think that these people were these long-time people at Turbine. And when you hire on people, you can't turn around and fire them. That's just, you can't do that. And so the first round, they probably fired some longer-time people. This round, they did the same thing where there were some longer time people, and that's because, exactly as finally said, they are the people who are paid the most. And when you look at it and you see a developer that is basically doing the same job, even if it's not as well, from their point of view, it's the same job, and so you get rid of the person who's paid more.
Yeah, Fredulous points out that Turbine has open positions even now, and I'm not sure that makes me feel any better.
Mm.
Yeah, this, like, obviously, it has kind of caused a change in how I perceive LOTRO in terms of its future and where it's going to go and stuff. Whereas before I was kind of like, I didn't really worry too much about, like, I thought, yeah, we're going to get some more, it's going to be fine. You know, there might be some problems on the way, but yeah, we'll make it and be good. At this point, I'm not going to even bother considering us going that far. I'm not saying we won't, but I'm not going to actually think about how it's going to be. I'm just going to enjoy it as it is now, and maybe the next update, and then, you know, when we get to that one, the one after that, if there's more good stuff coming, I'll be excited for that. But any further along the roadmap than that, I'm not going to get my hopes up or anything like that. I think this has happened. This has just kind of shaken my faith that much.
And, I mean, that's perfectly fair to not get your hopes up, but honestly, and I'm not trying to, you know, disagree with you, but just for the listeners out there that haven't necessarily made their mind up, we have no idea if this will impact LOTRO on any level, to be honest, until the time comes. And so it will be very interesting to watch the coming months. And even if content does get delayed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would have not been delayed otherwise. I would like to point that out, because LOTRO's had several delays throughout their history, and it's almost expected for them to delay. But that doesn't mean that, you know, that also doesn't mean that they might have less people working there, and that might decrease their amount that they're able to do. And so, you know, it's easy to point fingers, I think, on the outside, but honestly, we just don't know what is really going on, and I don't think we ever will, to some extent, you know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they never say a single thing. I really wouldn't.
Which I think you're probably right, but I really wish they would just listen to all of their player base and just, Kate Paez needs to release another producer's letter or a producer's update and just say, okay, some things happened here. We're fine. We're still on track. This is what we're planning. And then everybody, can just move on. Which I think would solve a lot of the problems all of us as players are having with this whole thing, because, right now we just don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree. In their favor, though, there was the snow holiday. I don't know if they missed work or not because of that, but there was that, and then there's Valentine's Day, and, there's a lot of stuff that went on this week, I'm imagining, at Turbine, so they might not have gotten their team together yet to know if they can still meet the deadlines that they're going to need.
I would think that if they haven't made some sort of statement by the end of next week, then they're never going to. I think that's the kind of the limit as far as they would go for that.
Any other comments before we move on?
Finally, if you've been quiet, why don't you go ahead and close it off?
Very well. We have, as we have said, there have been layoffs over at Turbine. We don't have details on it, and we hope to have more so that we know what is going on. Therefore, we'll move on to regular news, in which case this is a loot box weekend. If you care about such things, which means this weekend there are extra loot boxes being dropped all over the world.
And I can attest to it, because in Adventures there were several loot boxes that players who were with us got.
And keys, too.
And keys, yeah, they're both increased.
So we have loot boxes and keys being dropped this weekend. So hopefully you'll be... maybe someone wants you to think about those instead of other things. But we also have store sales.
Conspiracy theorist.
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah. Store sales. Our weekend specials is 15% off of Mithril coins for February 14th through 17th, which means, so if you want Mithril coins for your Valentine, this is the time to get it. And we also have our free sample of the week, which is a random relic pack, Relic 5, one per account. And also we have expansion quests are 20% off. And these are the quests for Rohan, Moria, Mirkwood, and Isengard. If you prefer to get the entire expansion, those are also 20% off for Rohan, Isengard, and Moria.
Which they don't sell the Mirkwood expansion anymore, so that makes sense. Basically, all expansions and expansion quests are on sale,
Right.
because I don't think there is a Mirkwood expansion.
No, the reason for that is because the other main thing about the Mirkwood
Exactly,
expansion were the skirmishes, and they're free now since it's part of the Epic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Also 20% off are 100% experience boosts for 1 hour, enhanced XP supply, and tokens of the Hornburg. In other words, the theme for this week is expansions and getting the XP so you could use them.
I would like to point out that Zinger from the chat says that he likes loot, and I have to agree with the guy.
Yeah, just the ones, with boxes, they just kind of aren't that good.
All of the great,
The
all of the
boxy
great
loot is not as
discussion.
good as the loot, yeah.
all of the great discussion going on in the chat room, and you picked that comment. That's hilarious.
Yes.
I did. I thought it was.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, loot is great. They really sound nice when someone's playing them properly.
LUTE.
Yes.
Mm.
All right, let's go into our news at our website. And first of all, LOTRO video highlights.
Headlights.
Monster-
Or headlights. Either one, Piney. They're both good.
Yes, Monsters of Middle-earth ending. You know anything about this?
I do, Pineleaf. That's because I wrote the article. And this is about, basically, in 2009, Turbine decided that the special edition had been out long enough of the original Shadows of Angmar campaign, or base game, and they decided to go ahead and release some of the, actually all the behind-the-scenes videos on YouTube. And so this is just one of them that I picked out, and it's really interesting to see how much detail they go in to designing the monsters in Middle-earth. Back in the original game, they had silhouettes that they had to make for each different enemy type. They had to do all these things, and in order to make it be a believable world. And it really makes you, sometimes you don't really notice the monsters. You take them for granted. Well, they're just, the trash mobs that you have to get through to see the landscape. But watching and seeing how much thought and effort went into it, it helps you appreciate more the monsters in the landscape, I think. And it's definitely worth everyone's time, I think, to watch if you haven't yet.
Right. We also had LOTRO Players Adventures, Episode 2, where we all entered into the Great Burrow. The Great Burrow, does mean we went to Hobbiton and went into burrows? Oh! It must be a typo in the article. I guess you meant the Great Barrow.
Yes, finally, I meant the Great Barrel.
All right, yeah. We all went into the Great Barrow and ran all 3 of the instances there.
You just got served, Andy.
Did no one point out that typo the whole time?
We need an editor.
We do. LOTRO Players is now looking for an editor. It's not paid, though, so...
I don't have
I
the
thought ending
proofread,
was
but
the
I
end.
feel awkward about it.
It'll be
Plus,
fixed before this sentence is done.
I correct it with all British words and spellings, so
Oh
everyone
yeah,
will
don't do
understand
that.
it.
We can't have that. That wouldn't work.
Very well.
Use everywhere.
Yes. And Lily Kate, she posted a video on a scary bird. No, I don't mean one that's frightening. I mean one that's near scary in the Shire.
Yeah, somebody asked her in this article how she got the screenshots of the bird, because that's got to be hard to do. She got some really close-ups of the thing in flight. It was pretty impressive.
Yes, she does manage. Well, she's amazing in how she gets her screenshots for her animal articles all the time.
Yeah,
She
I agree.
has a talent for doing them very well.
She's got a good eye.
Yes. Now, Brax, what's your pick this week?
The pick this week is actually a post that came out last week, but we were remiss in our picks of the week last week. We didn't pick anything. So over at Massively, Sip, or Justin Olivetti, wrote his normal Road to Mordor column about Lord of the Rings Online, and it was called How LOTRO Explores What It Means to Be a Hero. And this was, Sip is a great writer, and everybody says that, but I think this might be the best thing I've ever read from him, honestly. This article explored the idea of what it means to be a hero in MMOs, what it means to be a hero in real life, how those mesh up. He talks about doing menial tasks in MMOs in order to support the true heroes of the game, like Aragorn and Gandalf. And he talks about how a lot of the heroes in real life are people that you never really know about behind the scenes, and how that actually plays really well with the way Tolkien wrote his stories, as the heroes were often the little unnoticed people. So it's just a fantastic article. It makes you kind of question your priorities a little bit, I think, when you read it, and it makes you question what your idea of a hero is and what you'd like to see within an MMO game.
All right. Any other comments on this?
Yeah, he pretty much nailed it for me. I know a lot of people tend to criticize LOTRO for having a lot of, I think you just call them collection quests, or go pick up this, or do meaningless things like, I'm level 95, I'm a battle-hardened hero, I shouldn't have to go pick up, berries to feed some people. And that's fine. I can understand why some people don't like those, or if there's too many in a certain area and stuff like that. But me personally, I enjoy doing those. And I'm someone who enjoyed doing North Cotton Farm, and that's just almost entirely collection quests. But I think the thing I like doing though is just in almost every single example with those, you can see they always seem to actually appreciate what you're doing that thoroughly. They treat you like a hero even though you're doing something almost considered trivial.
Yeah, and this time around, Lord of the Rings Online even kind of, they put a little quest in there with somebody who wanted to be a hero in Helm's Deep, and he followed you around for a while and saw all the menial servanthood type tasks that you actually do as a hero, and kind of came to the realization of what it really meant. So it kind of plays into the same idea.
Yeah, and I think that article really inspired, that quest really inspired Sip to write this article, and I'm glad that he got to it, because it's just a fantastic idea, and it created this fantastic article. So thank you, whoever at Turbine created that quest, and however it got to get Sip inspired. That was just great.
You reminded me of an old commercial I once saw for the National Guard, where the boss was complaining about his employee on National Guard duty, that he was sandbagging, and then it showed him a scene of him putting sandbags in order to keep a flood from wiping out a city. Yeah, he was sandbagging in the literal sense rather than in the figurative sense, as the boss meant. And that shows these things that they have to do, even though you'd think of the National Guard as shooting things or stuff like that, but there are these other tasks in order to prevent disasters, which they would also do.
Yeah, they do a lot more of that kind of stuff than they do actual combat, so, yeah.
Something I think Krell actually referenced in the chat. I'm not sure if Sip mentioned it in the article, but there's one quest line in Rohan that almost perfectly covers this sort of thing. It's that one in Edrus where you're showing the minstrel around why you do what you do and how we.
Yeah, that's the one we were talking about earlier.
Right, I can't remember if I actually mentioned it in here, but I absolutely love that quest line because they kind of lampshade it, and I don't think they've actually done that in the game before. So it was nice to actually finally see that.
Well, I would say there have been lampshades. For example, there's a quest in Isengard, which is called Kill 10 Rats.
Yeah. Yeah, there's several quests that are like that.
Which still makes me laugh.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember there was one quest in Dunland called Because I Said So.
Yes,
And
because
he
I
just
said
basically
so.
tells you to do something, and he's very rude about it.
Right. All right, donations. We don't have any donations this week, but we would like your support. To help support LOTRO Players, simply go to the donations page where you can help support the podcast on LOTRO Players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions. For $5, you can get a mention on the podcast of your choice, while for $10 or more, you can get a mention on all of our current podcasts. But we do have some feedback, and in fact, we have a new review. Andy, could you please read our new review?
I can, Pineleaf. That's because we actually received a 5-star review from Bragg. And so thank you very much, Bragg, for giving us our 5th 5-star review. And he says, "You asked for it, and you got it. LOTRO Players has quickly become the de facto site for the latest and greatest happening around the game. The hosts have a wealth of experience and refreshingly different perspectives, combined with a shared love of the game and desire to build an even stronger community. The interplay gets better each week as they develop their chemistry." Gross. All this plus the dulcet tones of Pineleaf, the Velvet Warden. Best regards, Bragg of Villian.
Show title.
The
The
Velvet
Velvet
Warden?
Yep.
All right. And we also have some comments that are featured. For example, Airlog left a comment on episode 33 to LOTRO Players News. And Brax, do you think you could tell us this one?
Wow, Pineleaf, you sound just like me reading Fox and Socks to my kids. I think when Dr. Seuss wrote the original and when Sue wrote the update, they could just imagine the close calls that can ensue when one says Fox and socks on, or worked forking pork too quickly. Oh.
Good job.
That was close.
Remember, this is live. There is no edit button.
It's a shame I can't get the chat window to work with my Android device. Then it would be easier for me to play and listen/chat at the same time. Hope to see you guys for adventures at some point. Need to work my new alt up to level 30 plus, and 5 p.m. on a Saturday is definitely depending on Mrs. Ear and Mini Ears. It's EIRS, not EARS. They have a habit of blowing the summoning horde at inopportune times. Example, when healing a raid. Keep up the excellent work. Earlog Muscle Gut of Rittermark.
Very
Well, the trick to healing a raid is to do it so badly that they don't notice when you're not there.
That's right.
Ooh.
And thank you, Athalros, for providing that sort of thing on this week's episode of LOTRO Players Adventures.
That is cruel.
I do
Mr.
my best.
Mr. Muscle Gut is in the chat room. Thanks for your
Indeed, yeah, thanks.
thanks for trying to trip me up there.
Very well. And Anthony also has left a comment on episode 33 of LOTRO Players News, and he has a limerick. There once was a hobbit from South Farthing, whose belly was so large it was alarming. Wargs ran in fear, and so did the deer, when his belly just started a rumbling. Good job, guys.
That's not part of the poem, by the way.
And Lily Kate left a comment on episode 33. Everybody's leaving episode 33 comments, it looks like.
Yeah, it was a popular show.
Yes, and she said, "Great show. Thanks, Brax, Drac, Etheros, and the other ones."
That was a makeup call right there.
That was.
It's to make up for last week.
And, little Kate, I think me and Pineleaf like you a little bit less.
All right, emails, and we have an email from Siegfried. Is this the Siegfried that slew Fafnir?
I believe so.
All right.
I actually don't know. Don't.
Okay, let's see. I love how you deliver the news. It's fun and very informative. I hope you guys will keep to continue this deed. More power to you guys. Cebu at WizzyWindle. You can contact us through email at lotroplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter, LOTROPlayers at LOTROPlayers, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Ethelrose at Ethelrose, Mystery at MysteryXOX, and Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles. And thank you, everyone. We have 2 shows. We have LOTRO Players Adventures, which goes live every Saturday at 5 p.m. server time, and LOTRO Players News that goes live every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. server time, and that is U.S. Eastern Time. And you can join us at lotroplayers.com/live. Any closing thoughts?
There's 2 things. Our discussion could have gone a lot worse, and reading that comment, Brax, could have gone a lot worse. So I think we had a pretty good show, considering.
Very well, then. That is all for tonight, and until next time, this is Pineleaf Needles, and remember to skirmish responsibly.